Hello hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of Buyer's Remorse, the series where we look back at some of the biggest trades, signings, or other acquisitions in league history, but teams didn't quite get what they paid for. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at a coaching hire that seemed like a match made in heaven, but ended in a bitter divorce, as we explore why the hiring of Mike Babcock gave the Toronto Maple Leafs a whole lot of buyer's remorse. Before we begin, I just want to mention that over 80% of you who have watched my videos this month have not subscribed to my channel, so if you do enjoy this video and you want to see more like it in the future, consider hitting that subscribe button. It would really help me out a lot, folks. Anyways, on with the video. So let's begin with the signing itself. On May 20th, 2015, it was announced that the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had finished the prior 14-15 NHL season with the second worst record in the Eastern Conference, had signed former Detroit Red Wings coach Mike Babcock to a blockbuster 8-year, $50 million contract in order to serve as the team's new head coach. With a salary of $6.25 million a year, this deal made Babcock the highest paid coach in NHL history, surpassing the previous record holder and current Edmonton Oilers coach at the time, Todd McClellan, who was earning $3 million a season. This fresh new face behind the bench was exactly what the Leafs needed, since they had been rolling with interim head coach Peter Horacek for the second half of the season prior, after former coach Randy Carlyle was fired midway through his fourth year with the team. Not only that, but Toronto were hoping that Babcock could help their team become a mainstay in the postseason once more, with the Leafs having made the playoffs just once in the last 10 years. In order to understand why the Maple Leafs chose to sign Babcock, let's take a look at his coaching career up until this point, and see why he was picked over the other candidates available. Following a brief playing career between 1980 and 1987, which saw him suit up for the WHL Saskatoon Blades and Kelowna Wings, McGill University in Montreal, and as a player coach with the UK's Whitley Warriors, Mike Babcock began his coaching career in 1988 with Red Deer College in Alberta. After 3 seasons with the team, a provincial championship, and a Coach of the Year award in 1989, the Canadian then became the head coach of the WHL's Moose Jaw Warriors for the 91-92 season, where he posted a not-so-impressive 60, 78-6 record and made the playoffs once in his 2 seasons with the team. After spending the 93-94 season with the University of Lethbridge, where he led the Pronghorns to a national title in their first postseason appearance and earned another Coach of the Year award, Babcock rejoined the WHL for the 94-95 season, this time with the Spokane Chiefs. Babcock would go on to spend the next 6 seasons of his career with the Chiefs, post a 228, 173 and 31 record, make 5 playoff appearances, and reach the WHL finals twice, before joining the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim organization for the 2000-01 season in order to serve as the head coach of their AHL affiliate in Cincinnati. The Canadian coach would then spend a pair of seasons behind the bench of the Mighty Ducks farm team, post a 74, 59 and 27 record, and make the playoffs in both years, albeit briefly, before being promoted to his first head coaching job in the NHL with Anaheim for the 02-03 season. Babcock would take his place behind Anaheim's bench for the next 2 seasons and found success in his first coaching gig in the Bigs, as he posted a 69, 62 and 14 record with 19 ties in 164 games. Not only that, but Babcock was able to lead the Mighty Ducks to an appearance in the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals, but unfortunately, Anaheim were defeated in 7 games by the New Jersey Devils. Ooh, so close yet so far. After missing out on the 2004 playoffs during his sophomore season with the Ducks, Babcock turned down an offer from Anaheim to return as the team's head coach following the 04-05 lockout. Instead, the Canadian coach decided to take his talents to an Original Six franchise, as on July 15, 2005, it was announced that Babcock had signed as the new head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. This move to Hockeytown would end up being a smart decision for both himself and his new franchise, as Babcock would spend the next 10 seasons of his career with the Red Wings, where he led the franchise to the playoffs every single season, made 2 appearances in the Stanley Cup finals, and even lifted his first and only championship to date when the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup in 2008. If that wasn't enough success for you, Babcock also surpassed Jack Adams as the all-time winningest coach in Red Wings history, and became the second fastest coach in NHL history to reach 500 wins, behind former Red Wings coach Scotty Bowman, en route to posting a 458, 223 and 105 record in 786 games during his time with Detroit. So when the Maple Leafs hired Babcock in 2015, they were getting a 500-win head coach who in 12 NHL seasons had made 11 playoff appearances, 3 finals appearances, and won a Stanley Cup. Oh, and that's not even mentioning his success on the international stage, where he became the first and only coach in hockey history to lead a team to the Stanley Cup, an Olympic gold medal, a World Cup, a World Championship gold, and a World Junior Championship gold. Yeah, this guy was a pretty good coach. Considering where the Maple Leafs were at when this hiring was announced, I can certainly understand why they picked a guy like Babcock to take the helm. When you think of successful NHL franchises since the year 2000, Toronto wasn't exactly at the top of the list in 2015, especially when you consider that the team had been incapable of making the playoffs more than once in the last decade. Having already committed to a complete overhaul of their front office and on-ice roster, the Maple Leafs wanted to bring together some of the best and brightest minds that the sport had to offer and rebuild the organisation from the ground up to ensure that they were in the best position to succeed long term. With a coach of Babcock's expertise and reputation now at the helm, the Leafs were hoping that he could mould their high draft picks and top prospects into future superstars, turn the roster into a consistent championship contender, and coach the team to their first Stanley Cup in 50 years. Now that we know why this hiring was made, let's take a look at what happened after Babcock made it to Toronto and see why this Original Six franchise would end up regretting this move for years to come. Following his hiring by Toronto, Babcock would quickly discover just how dedicated the front office was to an overhaul of their roster, as the Leafs continued to ship away many of their top players in exchange for prospects and draft picks. This mass removal of the team's veteran players didn't exactly make Babcock's job any easier. In fact, it made the chances of success in his first year practically impossible, as the Leafs finished the 15-16 NHL season at the bottom of the NHL standings with a 29, 42 and 11 record. Though he had failed to guide his team to the playoffs for just the second time in his NHL career and the first time since 2004, Babcock received praise from both management and the Leafs fanbase for his coaching of the team and how patient he had been with a roster that was expected to play poorly. This short-term sacrifice ended up being well worth it for Toronto though, as the Leafs were awarded the first overall pick in the draft and were able to add up-and-coming superstar and goal-scoring machine Austin Matthews to their roster. Not a bad consolation prize if you ask me, folks. With his rookie year on Toronto's bench behind him, Babcock was now feeling comfortable in his new surroundings and was ready to work his coaching magic to get his team back into the postseason. Between 2016 and 2019, Babcock guided the Maple Leafs to 3 straight 40-plus win seasons for the first time since 2001 to 2004, as well as reached the 100-point mark twice. Not only that, but Babcock would succeed in helping Toronto make it beyond the regular season consistently, as the Leafs also clinched a berth in the playoffs in all 3 of those years too. However, each of these postseason appearances would have the same outcome. The Leafs would battle hard and make the games close, even managing to take the lead in a series, but ultimately their youth and inexperience in the playoffs would mean that they ran out of gas before the final hurdle and were eliminated in the first round. Though they had just faced their second straight first-round exit at the hands of the Boston Bruins in 2019, things were still looking optimistic for Toronto moving forwards. Despite their postseason shortcomings, the team still had a bunch of young stars who were already starting to find their feet on the scoreboard and who now had a better understanding of just how tough playoff hockey really is. With this added experience, and with a well-decorated and proven coach behind them, the expectation was that this more veteran group was primed to get over that first-round hump and focus on going deeper into the playoffs or even winning a cup. With the season set to resume soon, and with Toronto making the 24 team cut, whether they achieve this goal still remains to be seen. However, their cup-winning coach won't be around to find out. Going into the 2019-2020 season, fans around the league knew that on paper, the Maple Leafs looked stronger than they had done in many years, and seemed capable of making their first deep postseason run in well over a decade, but they needed to see it to believe it. Though the roster seemed to talk the talk early in the year, unfortunately they couldn't walk the walk too, as the Leafs posted a 9-10-4 record in the first 23 games of the season. After a 4-2 loss against the Vegas Golden Knights, and with the Leafs losing streak at a season-high 6 straight games, Toronto's management felt that enough was enough. On November 20th, 2019, the Maple Leafs announced that they had relieved Mike Babcock of his coaching duties and replaced him with Toronto Marlies head coach Sheldon Keefe. This marked the first time in his NHL coaching career that Babcock had been fired from a team, and meant that he finished his tenure in Toronto with a 173, 133 and 45 record in 351 games, as well as 3 straight first-round playoff exits in his 4 years behind the bench. Though most coaches would fade into the background after they got fired, and wait until they could emerge from the shadows having found another gig with a different team, Babcock's tenure under the bright lights and the scrutiny of the Toronto media was far from over. Soon after the coaching change, reports began to surface detailing some of Babcock's questionable player management tactics. One report claimed that during the 16-17 season, Babcock had allegedly told Leafs rookie Mitch Marner to make a list ranking the players on the team by how much effort they gave on the ice. Having reportedly placed his own name at the bottom of the list amongst some of his peers, Babcock then called Marner into his office and shared his list with those same players that he had ranked at the bottom also in the room, which apparently included veteran Leafs players Nazem Kadri and Tyler Bozak. Luckily for Marner, Kadri and Bozak didn't take their positions on the list to heart and knew that it wasn't Marner's choice to write it, so the players were able to make amends and carry on focusing on the season. After the reports came out though, Babcock said that his intention was to focus on work ethic and role models with Marner, but did state that it ended up not being a good idea and that he apologised at the time. Not exactly a great way to build team chemistry or make a rookie feel welcome, is it? I could understand if a rookie NHL coach made this kind of mistake, but a guy who's been in the league for over a decade, not your smartest play, Babcock. If that wasn't bad enough though, in the days following the list incident coming to light, other claims began to surface regarding the way Babcock treated his players. Former Red Wings forward Johan Franzen claimed that Babcock was a bully and the worst person he had ever met, stating that the Canadian coach would say horrible things to his Red Wings teammates, verbally attacked him on several occasions, and had even caused him to break down on the bench in one instance. This poor treatment was corroborated by former Red Wings defenseman Chris Chelios, who claimed Babcock had blatantly verbally assaulted Franzen on the bench during a game. Since his time with the Wings, Franzen has reportedly been diagnosed with PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. Whether that's due to Babcock's treatment of him or not is tough to prove, but it certainly didn't help, did it? It's also worth mentioning that Babcock has made some rather petty roster decisions over the years to stop some of his players reaching milestones. During the 10-11 season, Babcock decided to scratch future Hall of Famer Mike Modano when he was at 1,499 games played, preventing him from ever reaching the 1,500 game plateau, whilst during the most recent season, he scratched newly acquired forward Jason Spezza for the Leafs season opener in what would have been his debut game with his hometown team against his longtime former team, the Ottawa Senators. What a nice guy. So not only did Babcock fail to help the Leafs get past the first round or even win a cup, but he also tried to embarrass one of the team's star rookies, had a supposed history of mistreating his players, and would actively stop certain skaters from reaching prestigious milestones. Well, that's one way to have your reputation tarnished, isn't it, folks? At the time of this recording, Mike Babcock is still out of work in the hockey world and is looking for his next coaching job, whilst the Maple Leafs had somewhat of a resurgence during the second half of the 1920 season under interim coach Sheldon Keefe, earning a place in the play-in round for the NHL's 2014 bracket to finish the season. Considering all the information that has surfaced after his firing, I don't think Mike Babcock will be getting another gig in the NHL anytime soon, if ever. But with him still being owed $25 million for the remaining 4 years of his contract with the Leafs, he isn't exactly in a rush to join the unemployment line, is he? So, in conclusion, when the Toronto Maple Leafs hired Mike Babcock to be the team's new head coach in May of 2015, they were hoping that a proven winner with a tried and tested strategy and a track record of success could take their roster full of young, high-potential players, mould them into champions, and help the franchise win their first Stanley Cup championship in over half a century. What actually happened was the Leafs became the worst team in the league for a season, had 3 straight first-round exits, and started the next season with an under 500 record, before firing him and later finding out that he mishandled one of their now star players and wasn't too kind in his previous coaching gig either. If that doesn't scream buyer's remorse to you, I don't know what will. If I was the Leafs, I sure hope that I kept the receipt, because I definitely want a refund. And that's why the hiring of Mike Babcock gave the Toronto Maple Leafs all the buyer's remorse. What do you guys think about Babcock's tenure in Toronto? Also, is there another free agent signing, trade, or front office hiring that you want me to look at as part of this series? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Antti Hannanen, Chris Gadsby, Connor B, Jordan Whitehead, Paul Mallia, Roman from London, The Legacy and Worthless Pieces, as well as a huge thank you to Max Artis for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.